and welcome to the Major Remix. My name is Maya McIntosh, and today we will be delving into the Space Systems Engineering major with guest Jacopo Mattiana, and later with the minor mix we'll have host Nicole Lee and guest Andrew Smith talking about the French minor. We'll be right back after this.
Now, how should we set this scene? Maybe it should be outside? Maybe not. Let's try a car. Kinda cramped. How about a stairwell? That works. Now for music. Too silly. Perfect. Now for dialogue.
Welcome back. I'm here with guest Jacopo Mattiana. Jacopo, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Pretty good myself. Before we get started with the interview today, we have a segment prepared for you. We went out and asked a bunch of students what they think the Space Systems Engineering major is. Let's take a look.
System engineering is like working with development and engineering aspects of like NASA and like systems with space.
They study, the technology they use to look at space and study space.
I think it has to do with space, NASA. You also make a lot of change. I automatically think NASA and all things space. Probably like if you want to be like a rocket scientist or like space engineering.
And they work with NASA. So I'm assuming that the Space Systems Engineering are a part of I know they're launching a satellite soon with NASA. So I would assume they do a lot of work there.
Obviously have to do with space, aeronautics, probably like rockets, stuff like that.
I think it's cool. I mean, I know one of them, so
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of weird. But he took me through a tour of it once, and all the stuff they do seems interesting and kind of neat.
I picture like the ones who work on the satellites and just the like rockets and stuff that get sent to space, like the research for like the moon and stuff like that.
Like Brad said, I am unfortunately living with a space systems engineer. Kind of just seems you willingly chose to do physics for like the rest of your life. So I imagine you're all depressed.
I love space majors. They're all pretty chill, but I don't know anything about what y'all are doing. So
it's a show. It's a time in the Space Science Center. We don't really know what's going on at any given point in time, but somehow we're all making it through it.
Think of the video. How accurate were the responses?
They're pretty accurate because right now we're working a lot with NASA, which, as they've kind of mentioned, right now we have a satellite called Lunar IceCube that's sitting on the Artemis 1 rocket that will be launched in, I believe, a month and a half. So that's pretty exciting. But it is a lot. It is pretty busy. We have most of the degree is physics-based and with a lot of calculus as well, since we have to go up to Calc 3. So most of the courses are very math-intensive, and we have to do a lot of labs as well. So we're always doing something. So.
All right. So how would you yourself define the Space Systems Engineering major? Like, what kind of is it? What can you expect from it and stuff like that?
That's a good question. So the way how I would define space systems is that it's a kind of a general form of engineering, because a lot of other engineering, you have specifically electrical, specifically mechanical, specifically this, that, and the other. Systems kind of takes it's okay, we're going to look at all of this and then find a way how to integrate it all together. But since it's space themed, it's okay, now instead of just surviving on Earth, now how do we make this survive on Mars? How do we make this survive in the vacuum of space and so on?
Yeah, and that's really cool. So what do you think makes this major stand out to others?
To others, specifically the space theme part, because like I said, there's a lot of engineering that happens here on Earth, which is really cool, but then we have to add that extra element of okay, we have to stand the trials here on Earth, plus these extra harsh environments that we need to test against. So, yeah.
So I know you mentioned having to test different things and stuff like that, but you also mentioned math and obviously in the video physics.
Yeah.
Would you say this major is more hands-on or more in-class learning or to the books, or?
It depends on the class. So all the classes that are specifically marked Space Systems Engineering are a lot hands-on. Almost all of them have labs in them. So we'll have that part of lecture, and that's okay, that stuff that you learned in lecture, time for you guys to apply it. Make a circuit that does this, or build a rover that does this, or build a mock satellite that can detect temperature, and then off the temperature readings find the altitude at how high up it goes. But then we also have classes like physics or calculus 3 that are a lot more just hey, sit in the class, do this homework, and see how well you can master the material.
So. Nice. So this major has some opportunities with NASA in creating different projects, which you have a rover with you, so we'll talk about that here in a bit. But what other requirements are there, like, in order to work with NASA and that kind of stuff, that you have to have in order to do that?
So to work with NASA specifically, there's one that's kind of, I know it's sadly in the way of some students. You have to be a U.S. citizen to work on some of these. The reason for it isn't like specifically racism, but it started from the Cold War that during the space race, they made U.S. citizens only to work on it because it can be regarded as U.S. weaponry. So because of that, you have to be a U.S. citizen to work specifically with NASA, although you can do other projects as well, not for people who aren't just a U.S. citizen. Then there's also paperwork, mainly NDAs. Like for example, like I'm a part of both CXBN and Lunar Ice Cube, although I can't tell you like specific stats about the satellite. Like I can't tell you what boards are on them. I can't give you the code that goes onto the satellite and stuff like that. So, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for this interview. We'll be back in a bit to interview Hokobo with the rover. We'll see you back in a second.
All right, cool. Thank you so much.
It's so hot. Where am I?
Why, you're at Morehead State University's wonderful pool, located at the rec center.
Wow! I want to swim right away.
But you can't swim like that. Now get in, you silly. Go online and reserve your lane today.
Breckenridge Hall is home to the School of English, Communication, Media, and Languages. There is a theater, spacious lecture rooms, state-of-the-art computer labs, Morehead State University Public Radio, and a full TV studio. For more information on what is offered here, visit Morehead State University's website.
Welcome back. We're here with Hokobo once again. And I know I kind of spoiled it in the last interview, but what do you have for us today?
So this was one of the rovers that I was talking about that we had to make it for lab one day. We had an original platform, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make it like 40 times better. So originally, the rovers that we have in class, they move just like forward, back, then they turn like left to right like this. This one's special because of the wheels on the bottom. They're called Mecanum wheels. And so what it does is that it will spin it. It'll go left and right instead of just turning, and so for you to have to go left. On top of that as well, attached on here on top is a robotic arm that would go on like so, like this.
Oh wow!
And then it can move around, and pretty much any degree of motion, and then also can spin this here. And then the other extra thing about this rover is that it is all controlled through a wireless PS2 controller.
Dang, that's impressive. What specific knowledge that you learned from the major helped you to create this?
So a lot of it actually. One thing is through the introductory courses we learned basic circuitry and also how Arduinos work and stuff like that. I personally had never touched Arduinos before that, so I used that a lot to help build the basis onto the rover to help actually move it around and stuff like that.
All right. Is it common for a lot of different projects like this to be built?
Half-half. Most students, to be honest, are just kind of like cool. I'm like they're like satisfied with like the base rover because honestly it is really really cool already. But then there's some students who are like, you know what, I'm gonna sit down and make it cooler. So me and another student who is a non-traditional student, so he's a little bit older. He's a deputy with the I forget for what county, but he wants to help build a robot that will like breach houses in case of like violent situations and stuff like that. So I'm helping him work on that. So I'm working on the software for that, and he's working on the hardware for it as well. So it's kind of a mix.
That's really cool. Are there other like projects besides just rovers and such that you can do? I know Kaylee Manshine, our previous host and director, has mentioned that there's like different circuit boards you can work on, or just even smaller scale projects. Is that true?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of the things that a lot of people work on is we make like LED structures. That's something that was surprisingly a lot harder than I thought. So what you do is like whatever design you want to do, you make it into 3D with LEDs. Like for example, the cube, you have like 4 LEDs, or no, pardon, you have 16 LEDs per layer, and then they're just stacked up 4 times, and you have a cube. Or you can do them all on the outside to make a rocket ship, or you can do a heart or any other shape you want.
All right, that's really cool. So you want to go ahead and let our guests here see what the rover can do?
Sure.
All right. I want to see this as well because I'm excited.
So as I mentioned, it goes sideways as well.
So kind of like crab walks and stuff.
Yeah.
Dang. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jacobo, for coming on today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem at all. Right after this, we'll be back with Nicole Lee and Andrew Smith for the Minor Mix.
Career Services offers many different services to both students and employers. We're here to connect students with employers and graduate programs. We help students along in the process of polishing their resumes and getting ready for interviews.
Hey, it's Nick with the Minor Mix. I'm here with Andrew Smith, and Andrew's minor is French.
Yep.
So, Andrew, would you say the French minor is a heavy workload?
I don't think so. Next semester will be like my third or fourth semester taking like 18 credit hours, and it's never felt like a huge amount of extra work. That's never been too bad.
Okay. So, how does the French minor complement your major, which is
Computer science.
computer science?
Well, I decided, because I'm learning a bunch of other languages in like C++ and that stuff, and so I figured it probably a good idea to learn an actual other language, because you know most everyone else can speak one.
So you'd be bilingual.
Yeah.
So, why did you choose the French minor?
I had Spanish in high school, and I just never really liked it. I'm not sure what it was, so I decided to take French 101 for my humanities credit, and Karen Taylor basically just sold me on the minor. She's a great professor.
Oh, awesome. So would you say that a class from Karen would be your favorite class, or what is your favorite class?
Right now, the way that sort of the French classes are set up currently, the first class we have sort of goes really in depth on a certain grammar subject, and then I'm also in 202, which is sort of more a broad, we'll talk about different broad things. So we'll just sort of cover something broadly in the one class, and then we'll go into a deep dive into it on the other, and it's nice to keep it in your brain.
Okay, nice. So you probably know I'm going to ask you, would you talk a little bit of French for us?
Oui, je ne parle pas français.
What does that mean?
I cannot speak French.
That's fine. If someone wanted to contact an advisor or somebody in charge for more info about the French minor, what would they contact?
It would just contact Karen directly. Karen Taylor. She's around here somewhere in Breck.
Okay.
Or like I said, 101 counts towards humanity.
Yeah.
So take that, and if you like it, continue.
Okay. Well, thank you for being on the show with us today.
Of course.
We'll be right back with Maya.
Well, I had a lifelong dream and a goal to move to Las Vegas. So when I moved out, each hotel had their own house band. And I started a 3-month union residency to become a member of the community. And then about 2 weeks after that, I got a call out of the blue asking me if I wanted to go on the road with Buddy Rich. And I knew that at some point in time I would always want to come back and teach college somewhere. I just never thought in a million years that I would wind up where I began.
For joining us on this week's episode of the Major Remix. If you're interested in learning more about the Space Systems Engineering major, please contact 606-783-2381 or email phes@moorheadstate.edu. We'll be back next week with traditional music with special guest Ruth McLean Smith and her orchestra. We'll see you next week.